Alright, what is up FPG fam? Further here, and in today's video I wanted to give my first impressions or my initial thoughts on Cobalt B from the story mode, the little bit that I got to play with her. Now admittedly this video was supposed to come out a couple of days ago, but if you're unaware, I had a major hurricane hit my state, so we had to prepare for that. The power went on and off periodically, as well as the Wi-Fi, so I wasn't able to actually produce this video until now, so I do apologize about the delay, but we're here and we're gonna go ahead and talk about it once again. Just give my impressions of Cobalt B, just using her in this story mode for a little bit. Right when she officially comes out and I get to put her in proper team comps and really try her out, I'll give more of an in-depth guide and give more of an in-depth take on this character. But for right now, this is just going to be my first impressions. I thought we would go over some of the cons first and then afterwards go over the pros, kind of end it on a high note. And in the comments down below, a question for you guys: let me know, are you going for Cobalt B or are you going to save? And let me know the reasons for your decisions. I would love to see what you guys have to say down in the comments below. But with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into her first con. And the first con I would have to point out is something that I noticed right off the bat, and that she seems to be a bit stationary when it comes to her basic attacks. And some simulacras are like that, but I in particular like my simulacras to be mobile with their attacks, because the enemies have the ability to stun lock you, to CC you, and that can be irritating and a bit frustrating when you cannot move and you're trying to do things. So whenever a simulacra is stationary with their basic attacks, it's a bit of a turnoff for me and a bit of a con. I think that's why I gravitated towards Frigg so much, is because when you're able to do those multi-slashes and you're able to constantly move around and dodge and not be hit, but able to do your own damage at the same time, it leads to really good and fun gameplay. And with Cobalt B being stationary, I could just see yourself being stun locked by the enemies, being CC'd, and having some trouble trying to do the things that you want to do while the enemies are just, you know, pretty much mauling you. So that was just one con that I noticed. Now with her other attacks, you could be pretty mobile, so you may not be doing her basic attacks as much, so it's a bit of a nitpick. And most of these cons are a bit of a nitpick, if I'm being honest with you, because I don't find the simulacra to be inherently bad really in any way that I noticed personally. But if I was to point out some cons, that would be the first one, is that the basic attacks, you're pretty stationary. You're pretty stationary with the jumping attacks as well. You just don't have a whole lot of movement with this simulacra, so that would just be one thing that I would point out. Now moving on to the second con, and this is a bit of a nitpick as well, I will admit, but I noticed that with Cobalt B, she doesn't really have a whole lot to offer outside of doing a bit of damage and having the capability or potential to shield break. And what I mean by that is that if you look at her kit, you don't see any CC within her kit. You don't see any healing within her kit. You don't really see any damage buffing within her kit. So because of those reasons, it leads Cobalt B to be very one-dimensional and very black and white and straightforward. You know exactly what you're getting from this simulacra, and that doesn't always equate to being a bad thing, right? Sometimes you want your simulacras to be pretty straightforward and black and white. You don't want them to not know what their role is. But in Cobalt B's case, I think it's so straightforward that it's maybe a slight detriment, because you would maybe want Cobalt B to do something additional like CC. I would love for the simulacra to be able to, within her skill or discharge or maybe one of her jumping attack animations, to be able to CC the enemy in some type of way. Post editing further here, and I wanted to add to this that I believe something additional that you could have gave Cobalt B as well is hyper body. I think having hyper body or hyper armor on her skill while she's moving around would be extremely nice, so she cannot get interrupted from that. Or even within her charge attack, if you had hyper body on that so she couldn't get interrupted, that would be really nice as well. I think hyper body would have been fantastic for this simulacra in many ways. Just wanted to add that in there. But with that being said, let's get back to the video. I think that just would have played into this simulacra being a little more valuable in that case, but it's not a huge thing. Once again, it's a bit of a nitpick for me. It's just something that I can point out as a slight con, but nothing to really dwell on right now. those are the cons for me, the ones that I can really notice right off the bat with having little playtime with this character, and just as my initial thoughts and first impressions. But let's move on over to the pros, and I do really like the pros for the Simulacra because there are some good ones. Now, the first one that I notice is that this character is extremely fun and unique. Now, with most Simulacras, they are fun and they are unique in their own way, but Cobalt B kind of takes it a step further because she is the only Simulacra with a flaming shotgun, so that leads to different gameplay that you haven't experienced before, and a fun gameplay at that. Whenever you have a shotgun in a game and it's a flaming shotgun, that just equates to a good time. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So of course Cobalt B is tons of fun and is incredibly unique and is engaging with the gameplay as well. You just kind of get immersed a bit when you're playing this Simulacra, in my opinion. So I really like the gameplay. I find her fun and unique. So that's one of the first pros that I would point out, because I think that's important. You want your Simulacra, the one you are planning on pulling for, using your premium currency on, to be engaging, to be fun, to be a gameplay style that you want to play all the time, and you don't want it to get boring. So I think Cobalt B is definitely one of those Simulacras. Now, moving on to the second pro, I think she actually does some decent damage. As you can see in this gameplay, I don't have a proper setup. I don't have any other flame weapon on this setup, and you can see she's doing some pretty decent damage. Now, I understand this is in the story, you're not really testing it in any hard or end game content, but at the same time, I can really see the potential. I can, even with the damage percentage nerfs and the advancement percentage nerfs, or rebalancing, I should say. I don't like using the word nerfs, I should say rebalancing. I think this character, Simulacra, has the potential to really do some damage, especially in the right setups, with the right matrices, with the right equipment. I think you can really get some good damage from the Simulacra, even with the rebalancing. So I'm excited about the potential of this one. I think she's going to be fine in the damage department. So that would just be another pro that I would point out. I'm going to go ahead and put it on the table. Now, the other pro that I really like about Cobalt B that I would put in there, in my opinion, of course, is the jumping animation attacks and the variation between the two. So if you're unaware, with the singular jump and then with the double jump, there is two different animations that happen, which is really nice. I like that. So with the double jump, she does a different animation when it comes to the attack, I should say. So when you attack after the double jump, it's a certain animation, and then when you do a singular jump and attack, it's a different animation. And having that variation and that switch up is really cool. Once again, very unique, and I do like that about Cobalt B. Now, moving on to the next pro, I would have to say is within her skill, and the fact that you can move around with her skill while being able to have it popping off. So I think that's a pro, because if it was stationary, I would see it as a con. If you cannot move while doing her skill, that would be unfortunate and certainly a con in my opinion. But the fact that you can move around while doing the skill and the AoE on it and the amount of enemies that you're able to hit most certainly is a pro, and something that I think is valuable. I think the ability to hit multiple enemies, being able to move around, doing some good damage is a pro, and I really like the skill and the discharge as well. I think the discharge is extremely nice. I think it has some decent AoE, and I think it's going to be the bread and butter along with their skill in terms of damage and shield breaking. So you couple those two things together, you pop off the discharge and then you go right into the skill. I think it's going to be a great combination, and then you go into another fire or flame weapon and you keep it moving, rinse and repeat. I think that's going to be a nice little combination. And then of course, last but not least, is Cobalt B's design. She is an aesthetically good looking Simulacra, and I could see why people do gravitate towards Cobalt B. She looks great. Couple that with the shotgun and the animations that she's able to do, and the skills and the discharge, and everything just kind of comes together to make this Simulacra look great. So those are just kind of my first impressions on Cobalt B, kind of my initial thoughts on the Simulacra. And once again, once she officially comes out and I could put her on a proper team with proper builds and try her in proper content, I'll do a more in-depth guide and more of a better breakdown on what I really think, kind of my final thoughts on Cobalt B and what I think she's bringing to the table. Now, stay tuned to the channel. I do plan on coming out with a before you pull as well. I have some thoughts on what I think you should be doing, whether she's worth pulling or not, just based off of some information, and I think that's pretty straightforward as well, but I'll go more into that in another video that will most likely be coming out after this one. So in the comments down below. Once again, let me know what you guys think. I do truly appreciate all the support, and I'll see you all in the next one. Remember to stand out, be different, have fun, go further beyond in everything that you do. My name is Cody, but you can call me Further. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye, guys.